Hi, I'm Julie Thompson. Welcome to the Pembroke School Committee Candidate Interview. I want to take a moment to thank our candidate for participating in this interview and collaborating with PAC TV to bring this informational programming to residents and voters this election season. Let me explain the format. We will be conducting a one-on-one interview-style Q&A format with each candidate, lasting about 30 minutes. Responses will not be timed, and follow-up questions may be asked during this format. We aim to ask up to 4 questions, but that will depend on the length of the responses, along with any follow-up discussion during this exchange. Candidates will be allowed to address anything not covered or what they would like to add clarification to at the end of the interview in their closing remarks. Let's get started. Today we're speaking with Allison Glennon, one of the 4 candidates running for the 2 full-term seats for the Pembroke School Committee in the Pembroke Town election. Allison, thank you for joining us today.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions.
Okay.
And here's question number 1. The subject of social emotional support for both students and teachers is prevalent in budgets and conversations surrounding the entire school district. In all 3 educational levels, elementary, middle, and high school, specifically, how do you think these efforts have been successful? And what is your vision for including them moving forward?
Thanks for the question. I think they're critical for our schools. I have children in all 3 levels of Pembroke schools. I have a freshman in the high school. I have a 7th grader at the middle school, and I have a 5th grader and a 2nd grader at Pembroke. And I think all 4 of my children at one point or another have used the services that they're provided, whether it's routine counseling on their IEPs or check-ins. I know it's important that students coming out of COVID, a lot has changed for them. A lot of times, a lot of stuff was taken away from them. So getting into school, whether it's just their first time in school for the little guys or getting back into the routine, starting high school, there's a lot of ways that it's important for students to have that person to be able to go to, whether it is the social workers, the counselors, the guidance department. I've known most of them at this point from one reason or another, and we have a support dog that comes into the schools, which is awesome. One of my children has a service dog at home, and I know how much the animals can make a difference for students. So
Right.
I really am glad we have that in our schools, and I know funding has increased. I believe they're even adding a position in the schools. So I think it's important.
Now, what is the difference between, or in your opinion, the level of engagement that you need at the elementary versus middle versus high school? Because clearly the students are at a different emotional level in each of the grades.
So I know my family. So as my children have gotten older, they need less support and they need more of the check-in style. But it's important that the children have that person they know when something's happening that they can go to, whether it's a situation of bullying or just having a hard day or sadness over a memory or whatnot. For the little guys, one of my children especially, it's been so important for him to have the routine of it. He's like adorable, but one of the things he's done is there has been times where either the teacher was out sick or he was out sick, and he's like emailing, like, I need to make up my time. Like, it's almost like he's just so silly, like, oh, that time with the counselor. And
it means a lot to
it
the
does,
students,
and the routine of it, I know there's a lot of, when there's conflict in the schools, those people are very involved in helping the students kind of work out their feelings. So, for the little guys, like having a true curriculum, I think is really important. And then as they get older, changing it to check-ins and just kind of like, so they know them, so they can see if something, they know, hey, what's up with that kid,
Yep.
Like it helps. And, in the high school level, I don't have as much experience because I'm only, 6 or 7 months into the high schooler,
Yep.
but I know it's important for the kids to have that person. And I know they're working on different curriculums, and Break Free from Depression is what they teach freshmen in their PE class, and I believe the second semester kids are about to get that either the week after, I believe they come back from break. So they're doing a lot of things. There's always better things, more that we can be doing, but I think what we have now, from my experience, has been good. I know others have other experiences, but I feel like
it's been effective.
It's been effective for at least my students.
Now, what about the teachers?
The teachers, I I can only imagine. Teaching, I'm sure, has changed dramatically over the years. I've read one Pembroke teacher saying, like, the COVID years were almost like being a first-year teacher all over again. And I've never been a teacher. I have, family that have been teachers and whatnot. But I think we need to do, if we want to have good teachers, we want to keep the good teachers, we have to do everything we can for them as well and protect their, mental health and give them the good work-life balance that I think everybody strives for.
Right. Okay. And you think this type of support should be funded going forward? It should be part of the budget?
For students or teachers or both?
Or both.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's, you have to meet the kids where they are, and same with the staff. Like, you have to, that's absolutely, critical. I think, the same as reading and writing, really.
Right.
To have that available for students.
Okay, great.
So, thank you.
So our next question. The budget includes mandates, collective bargaining, outcomes, facility and technology maintenance and upgrades, and dealing with the long, lingering impacts of COVID. How do you approach the subject of priorities when looking at a budget?
It's a loaded question because it's always a problem. I think money from coming, through the state, through local, through Pembroke, it's never going to be enough. No matter, I feel like, their budget right now, I've, been watching the meetings and attending the meetings, and, the deficits are involving cutting teachers this year, which is really unfortunate. But it's kind of where we're at with the money coming from the town. There's only so much, it's not like the district can fund their own, systems. There has to be open lines of communication between the administration at the school and the town level. And I feel like the select board needs to know what's going on budget-wise, the state representatives. It really needs to be more than just, the handful of people who are in the meetings. Like, it really needs to be a broader, because
Discussion.
Between special education funding, between, right now VoTech's not a big funding issue because we are roadblocked from it, but there's just, Pembroke, I feel like, is definitely struggling. They're being able to maintain what we have, and barely even that.
Right.
That's not a way to run a school system. It's not a way to run, individual, like, I could go on and on about little things I see in the schools.
I believe a lot of people feel the same way, and that each particular department, each school, each grade level has their own wants and needs and understanding, and each of them present a budget, and you're like, yeah, that sounds perfect. You want to fund everything, but you clearly cannot.
Sure.
So where do you draw the line? How do you make that distinction of what just can't be cut and what unfortunately has to be?
Yeah, I mean, watching what they're doing, Aaron Obie, the superintendent, cutting, I think it's considered 2.6 positions, full-time positions, that would have been done just because of reductions in the amount of enrollment we have right now. But that money would have been rolled over somewhere else, but right now it's being taken out. Fees have been raised. When it comes to, like, what to cut, student services, in my opinion, that can't be cut. That just, we've got to keep a certain level to keep families in town, to keep students, they're our future. We have to provide for them. The cuts, it's an impossible decision that a lot of times. So that's where I would hope that we can work with the town to try to get resources. And, I know Pembroke is fantastic at writing grants, and they've gotten a lot of grant money this last year, especially for the programs at the high school. And so just looking at those avenues, it's an impossible situation is what it comes down to.
What about unfunded mandates?
That's a huge issue as well. I know it's been brought up a number of times. I'm not as familiar with all of those just because I know it's a lot of jargon. I haven't come across just, being a parent in the schools. My experiences have been elsewhere, but I know that surrounding yourself with obviously people that have, the staff members who have been involved long enough, that's, but I know it's a big number.
It's a mandate, but it's not funded, so
it's a big number. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do? What about collective bargaining? Have you ever been involved in that before?
I have not ever been involved in that. My experiences have been on the the PTA side, PTOs, and volunteer side. So I just haven't. But I'm the type of person that has always. I read everything. I look into everything. I try to find out as much information. I've been going back on past minutes and reading kind of the history of the school district and what's been going on. So, a lot of that is not, there's not minutes involved. So there's not like something I can look up and, but I know once I'm involved, I'll probably be asking a million questions and things like that.
All right, question number 3. There is much discussion and a few options on the table regarding vocational educational offerings for Pembroke students. What is your opinion of each option, and when do you think one will come to fruition, if ever?
Thanks for that question. I actually went to South Shore VoTech on Tuesday and took a tour. My first time there. It was different. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was amazing.
So just explain to anyone who doesn't know, South Shore VoTech is
they're part of their own regional school district. They have one school. They have 8 member towns currently. They're in Hanover. Pembroke is not a member town. There's been a couple law changes and a couple agreements Pembroke has made that in the long run has made our zip code just a no-go for, we cannot.
You can't join in?
Well, no, we can join, but we can't send students currently. So we are in the process now of trying to join.
Okay.
We're hoping to have at town meeting a vote to form a non-binding committee to investigate to kind of know what that cost is going to look like.
Okay.
I believe VoTech is huge for a certain population of students. It's definitely not for everybody, but for those who it is, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to think that, like, my daughter's freshman class, no kids got into VoTech. In the local 2 schools. Silver Lake is an option. Was an option. It's not currently. My understanding, their VoTech is. They're not the same funding level they don't do their classes the same way. They don't shift from shop to education back and forth the way South Shore VoTech does. But I think it's definitely a key issue in this race right now. Previous decisions from the school committee have basically handcuffed us in the situation we're in right now. So between 20 years ago, leaving the district with Silver Lake to making an agreement with Silver Lake that now can't be honored because of state law changes. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I wish this would have happened a while ago, because at this point, if we are able to join, if it all works out, current 6th graders, the class of 2029, would be the first kids to be able to attend.
So that would be 3 years from now.
3. Okay. So basically,
that's the best case scenario.
That is best case. So current middle schoolers have no options, except for potentially some of the Aggie schools. But even then, the numbers are extremely low.
And what are those schools?
So Norfolk Aggie and Bristol Plymouth, which are both,
far away,
40 plus minutes, I believe, away. But even then, it's single digits that get into there as well. So my understanding is 20% of our 8th grade class applies to VoTech, and up until last year, we had some getting in. Now it's none.
Yeah, okay. Is there any possibility of us having our own VoTech program, or is it too expensive to bring one to fruition?
I can't imagine one town having, like, having gone to South Shore VoTech. I can't see it actually happening at that level where they have these huge shops of these $1 million of equipment. I mean, I went into their nursing one, and they have a 3D table that they 3D project a body that they can work on. Right. I think we already have a great place. I mean, recreating small sections, which is sort of in the general idea of what the Pathways program that they've started, it's still not the same thing.
Talk about Pathways for anybody who doesn't know that.
Yeah, so the Pathways program is new this year. They're kind of in their beta testing. There's, I believe, 20 kids that are seniors who they went back through their transcripts and fit the criteria for have already taken the classes. So there's computer science, digital arts, and business administration, I believe is the name. And so those kids right now, those seniors, are out in the community doing mostly paid internships.
Okay, yep.
And
getting credit for it.
And getting credit.
Okay.
And they'll get, I don't know what exactly they get other
Mm-hmm.
than, having completed the pathway. My freshman is on the pathway for the computer science one.
Yep.
So
it's something.
It's something,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of schools are kind of doing that.
Yeah.
They're opening up, I believe, 2 new ones, an engineering and I don't know if it's a health, I forget what they're calling it, but it's like another one that they're going to start for incoming freshmen this coming year.
So Pembroke's at least doing something.
Something. It's
in the meantime, yeah.
not anywhere near the same as what
Okay.
you get in a VoTech education. But it's at least something given, for a certain population of students
Right.
that it works for.
Okay. Next question. If someone asked you to describe the educational experience that a student would have in the town of Pembroke, what would you say are the greatest strengths and the most critical areas that need improvement? And be honest.
Okay, so we moved from Northern Virginia, one of the biggest school districts in the country. I mean, 20 plus high schools,
Wow.
$4 billion budget. So it was a very different experience there. So coming to Pembroke, my husband grew up here. His parents have been here since 1972. He went through the schools here. And the small town where, I mean, the superintendent knows at least, especially one of my kids, they know this, they're able to be hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
They know the teachers and everybody knows the students. And I feel like there's not as much, at least from my experience, as much red tape to get my kids and other kids, again, in my experience, what our needs are. Like they're able to
They can individualize.
much better.
Yeah.
So, but having the bigger school system, there were programs that Pembroke just doesn't have. Like my daughter is gifted and she qualified as a 3rd grader for what they call advanced academic placement. And so where we came from, her entire, she moved schools, so her entire 3rd grade class was a whole grade ahead academically. So her core classes would have been 4th grade. So she did that all the way up until we moved here at the end of her 6th grade year entering middle school. So when she entered middle school, we did remote school that year.
Yeah.
And I basically said to them, I was like, had we not moved, she would be she needs to be in the advanced 8th grade class as a 7th grader. And they were able to do that for her. So she is currently a freshman taking honors algebra 2. And she's on a great track because of where she was able from an early age to be accommodated.
Right.
So bigger schools with more money just have that we don't.
Right. But the trade-off is that
a very individual, yes.
Yeah, individual,
so
yeah.
One of my children who has more needs, on the special education side, he's come so far. Like it's incredible the difference experience. They see him as a whole child. They don't see him as the behaviors. They don't see him as the disability. They see him as the potential.
Right.
And it was we had a very difficult time in Virginia with some of the things that were happening to him, special education wise, and trying to get him the right.
But now
level of
he's
service.
in a good place.
It's
It's
amazing.
So it's a success story.
It is,
so that's what
for
you would.
sure.
The long and short of your answer is that the individualism and the staffing and the ability to take care of one-on-one children is huge. But the offset is the fact that we don't have the money and we don't have the facilities to offer as much as a bigger.
Yeah, I
town
think
would have.
overall, our facilities are older, and it's just a different experience, and there are definitely the trade-offs. But overall,
would you recommend someone to come to Pembroke based on the school system that you know?
Yeah, I would definitely say come. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, last question. I want to ask is about security. This is obviously a heartbreaking situation going on throughout our country. It's with school violence, a subject that school systems have to take incredibly seriously. What rating would you give, or what grade would you give Pembroke in terms of its overall ability to handle the whole area of security?
I don't really want to give it a number, honestly, because I feel like some of the things that I've seen, I don't want to be advertised necessarily as a strength or a weakness, because I feel like that's kind of part of.
You want to give anything away?
That's part of the security of it, of what you don't see, sometimes. I'm on the PCMS and the PHS school councils, and so it's with the school principals and teachers, and then other parents and community members. And so some of the things you hear or see, being in the school, we do have a school resource officer, Officer Kirby, who I see very often around school. I know our police chief has children in, he has triplets in one of my kids' grades. So I know the police presence is large in Pembroke for the schools, which is fantastic. I think the technology side of what could be better for security is not there. And I don't know where you even start with that, because I feel like there's so many things across the board with that could be changed that aren't security related. But I definitely think we can always do better with the security of the schools.
And what about how we prepare our children for the unfortunate, if something ever happened, this is what you do. How do you feel we prepare our kids on all three levels, at elementary, middle, and high school?
I think the best they can, given the circumstances. I have not talked to my elementary kids about if they've had lockdown drills, but I have talked to my older children about it, because they're in a better place to, I guess, I hate, to comprehend that. I was a junior in high school when Columbine happened, and it's incredibly frustrating that this is still a problem that my children on a million times worse level are having to face. It's one of the hardest things, I think, being a parent and sending your kids to school and having that unimaginable possibility out there. And so but you
tough. Feel overall that Pembroke is doing a fairly good job in terms of the security that we can provide, given the funding and everything else we have?
They had a security meeting probably about a year ago, after the Texas shootings, and I feel like they had good answers. There were very good questions from the community. And again, I think there's high-level stuff that goes on that they don't tell us, and
intentionally.
Yes, which I think is important. I think the drills are important. I know how a week or so had an unintentional fire drill happen, and I know the students did fantastic.
Yeah, they know how to do it. They know how to do it.
They've been able to do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So for the next 2-3 minutes, why don't you talk about anything you'd like to discuss, anything we haven't talked about, anything about your background. You can speak directly to this camera and tell the people, and then why they should vote for you.
Sure. I have over a decade of experience navigating the world of gifted education as well as special education, and a very often daunting IEP process going through from start to finish. There's a lot. So I have a unique perspective on kind of the challenges that parents have when it comes down to it. Like, I'm running because I'm a mom and I care. I don't have really an agenda other than just being a mom who cares. I care about the students, the staff, teachers, administration, the community as a whole. I really just want to sit at the table when decisions and the budgets are being made. I'm running a self-funded grassroots campaign with my family and friends. I want to give back to the community that has been part of my family for over 50 years. I volunteer through the PTOs, I was a soccer coach at one point. I'm part of the CPAC membership meetings, which is special education based. I've made friendships and relationships throughout my time here, and which has been short. I've been here 3 years, but in that time I have been working with my family and other families in different ways, with especially special education. I'm committed that all students receive the education that they need where they're at. I do support joining the South Shore VoTech district. I support Pembroke's move to the science of reading. I think moving away from balanced literacy is important. Teaching kids how to read the correct way works for pretty much all kids, especially dyslexic kids, but it also teaches all children. And I have 2 students who are dyslexic who have both used the methods of OG, which is this Orton-Gilliam, which is a science of reading based curriculum, and it's important. We need to move away from, the picture-based guessing of reading. It works for some kids, but it doesn't work for all children. I'm a listener. I read everything. I definitely want to open lines of communication for everybody in Pembroke. I hope I can be an ear for people. I would love to have a seat at the table when it comes down to it. I am welcome to talking to people who don't know me out in the community. Get in touch. My email address, I made a new one for this that's pretty easy. It's allisonpembroke@gmail.com. My name has 2 L's in it, Allison, pembroke@gmail.com. Please reach out. I'm happy to talk with everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Allison, for participating in this interview. We wish you the best of luck throughout your campaign and in the election. For our viewers, thank you for joining us. If you're interested in watching replays of this interview, please visit our website, pactv.org, for replay times and online viewing options, including PacTV's on-demand and streaming service, PacTV Prime. And please make your choices heard by voting in the town election on Saturday, May 13th. Thank you, and good day.